and welcome to another episode of Budding Entrepreneurs Podcast, brought to you by Budding Entrepreneurs Forum, MIT WPU School of Business. I am your host, Urja Vadgai, and today's episode is going to be a game changer. We are thrilled to welcome a very special guest, someone who has probably more startups under his belt than I have apps on my phone. So please join me and welcome Sagnik Ghosh, the co-founder and CEO of WorqHat, a no-code platform empowering startups and enterprises. Welcome, sir, to our podcast.
Thank you, Urja. Thank you, team, for having me. It's always a pleasure to come back to MIT.
Thank you, sir. So let's start with your origin story. Because let's be honest, starting your entrepreneurial journey at 15 is kind of superhero level. Tell us about CBSE Study Mania. Was it born from exam panic or just it was a pure genius?
So, kind of like every 10th standard student, when you get good scores in school, the first thing that your parents want you to do is you take up science and you go ahead with that. So during that period between 10th to that 11th, when we shifted to 11th, I think we have quite a long period of time. Say I think we get 2-3 months of break. That is when I was like, can we do something? Can we build something? And even early on during my childhood, say when I was 5 or 6 years old, I always wanted to be someone who went to moon. And I'm talking about a time when ISRO was nearly not half as cool as it is today, and no one knew Elon Musk back then. I'm talking about say 2005, 2006. So that is where I was like, I want to do something different, not go along the standard path. So after 10th, I was like, let's do something. We have got so much of time. I was always tinkering around with my laptop, breaking apart my CPUs, breaking apart my, the remote control cars that I used to have. So they used to last just 2-3 days. So that is where we noticed that when I was in 10th, the problem that we used to face was we did not get access to the kind of resources that we wanted before the board's preparation. Teachers had to manually distribute all the previous year questions and all of those. So we were like, can we build out a platform where we can let the teachers do that? I think this platform is still being used by the school, say I think 7-8 years now. So it is still being used by the school, and that has grown a lot. So that is where it started. It was maybe as a way of giving back to the school the way the school had done for us. So that is how it started.
That's great, sir. Because we were still figuring out how to sneak snacks at the age of 15, and you were building an Edtech platform.
I was also trying to figure out how to skip classes back then. So I think a lot of credit goes back to how I ended up putting time into developing myself. So I think today a lot of kids also need to put in a lot of time how they think outside of school, outside of college. So I think that is what played a very, very important role for me.
That's a lot of respect, sir. Let's talk WorqHat. No code is the buzzword right now.
Yes.
Everyone wants automation and nobody wants to code.
Right.
What inspired you to jump into this space, and how does WorqHat help businesses of all sizes?
So if you look at any kind of software, say you look at the college ERPs and any kind of software that you use, they're essentially made up of 4 main things. You have a form, you have a UI, and a kind of a back-end process that happens. That is what essentially builds every software. Now, before I started WorqHat, I was a freelancer for 2-3 months, and I was a pretty lazy freelancer, I would talk about it. Okay, so I used to absolutely hate 2 a.m. calls where my customers were like, this isn't working, can we fix this, or I need this feature shipped immediately. So I think that is where the idea of WorqHat came out. We wanted to give enterprises, we wanted to give startups a way to build different kinds of products without having to go into that loophole of hiring developers, spending a lot of money to build a software. It's not just about building software, it's about how you maintain it as well. So I think that is where the origins of WorqHat initially came from. And as someone who has built multiple startups prior to this, we always got to understood the pain point of what it takes to build a software. And recently you might have gone through this entire controversy about Piyush Goyal's and startups, where it's like, we need to focus more on the deep tech startup part of it. So my 2 cents on that will be, the main reason why people are hesitant towards building startups that are more tech heavy is because that kind of tech landscape yet does not exist yet in India. So I think that is what the plan was early on when we started building. How can we make building software more mainstream? It's all about helping the communities, helping companies build software without going into that, say, deep diving of code. And I think you might have heard these days, there's a lot of thing going on about how you build software with AI. So I think that is playing a major role in the new startup shift or the boost in the number of startups that are coming up these days. So I think that is why we started building WorqHat. And every company needs internal tools. Now, when you
Yeah.
ask about, say, of all sizes companies, okay, every company needs internal tools. You take a very small startup, they need the internal tools to say manage their customer base, to manage their orders that are coming in. You take a bigger organization, you take some large scale organizations, they have internal tools. They have internal tools that go on even for employee management and all of those stuff. So the main focus of companies essentially lies on, say, how can we build products which will help my customers. They don't end up focusing on the internal tools part of it.
Yeah.
So we take away that load from them, that you just focus on building products for customers. We will build out the internal tools for you, and you don't spend time on it. So that is how we cater to all segments of the industry.
So basically, WorqHat is like the Swiss knife army something.
That is what we aim to do. That is what we are eventually trying to do. We started off with building our own LLMs, our own language models. We were one of the first Indian companies to build language models based out of India. Now, the end goal is, how do you use language models? How do you use AI to bring about a proper outcome to bring about an outcome to how people use it, to bring about an outcome to how it benefits societies or communities or enterprises. So that is what end goals should always be when you're building a startup as well. So this is a midway tip. When you're building a startup, always make sure that you are always focusing on the outcome you provide to the people.
That's great. You have been part of multiple ventures, WorqHat, Winlysys, even the Google Developers Group.
Yes.
What one big challenge you faced as a young founder? Something that made you think, yep, this is the startup life.
See, the thing about running startups is you have challenges every day. I think at office we have this single line that we start off every day with, "आज क्या नया होने वाला है?" What's new today? Because every day something or the other comes up. And I think the biggest thing as young founders, we essentially face founders just out of college or founders building out of colleges. Raising capital gets hard because people don't tend to believe you. You don't have that kind of backing, or you don't have that kind of background to support that. Yes, you have that possibility to build it. And the second thing that ends up happening is, sometimes when you're reaching out to customers, they don't end up taking you seriously at times. I think I am at that stage where I find problems with parking in colleges because they think I'm a student. So I'm like, "Bhaiya, I'm not a student anymore, please." So that is, I think, what we feel. Imagine a scenario, you're walking into an office where the average age group is, say, 35, 36, and a couple of 21, 22-year-old guys walk in. I'm like, we are running this startup and we want to talk to the senior management out there. The kind of looks that we end up getting at times, "Are you sure you want to meet them?" I'm like, "Yeah, we are pretty much sure that we want to meet them." So I think these are the two biggest challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. And another thing that I think is a challenge that it's not just us as young founders face, but I think founders of every age group, say, no matter what the experience comes in, they faces people management. Human beings as individuals have a lot of different ways of thinking stuff, different ways, different outlook of how they look at, say, a particular situation. Now, it takes a long time for people to realize that people management is probably the hardest part of running any company. You say you have 10 people, all 10 of them have different ways of operations, all 10 of them have different thought process. Now, how you as an individual mold yourself to make sure that all of them are happy, make sure that any decision that you take is actually aligning with all of their goals. So I think that is the hardest part of running a startup that I have observed, and it takes a lot of learning and unlearning throughout the process. Because, say, if you're building a startup and you're completely fixed, this is how I want to do stuff, that's never going to work out for you. You need to go out there, you need to talk to your people, the people you're working with, to take everyone's feedback. End of the day, decision aapka hi hone wala hai. But that helps you to understand what aligns with their goals. So these are the main three things that we face on a day-to-day basis. But yes, this is the startup life. It's a drama every day.
Okay. The good idea that almost broke everything. I have been there actually, but with a group project, not with a startup. So, next question for you, sir. You also went through the Y Combinator,
Right.
which, let's be honest, is like the Hogwarts for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
What was the biggest takeaway from that experience?
The biggest takeaway that we had from YC was, the first thing that we are told about is always build something people want. Because essentially, when you are building a product, you want to build something. I have had situations where we have been like, you have built something which is a problem that's being faced by just you and a couple of people around, and a lot of people are not being able to use it. So I think that does not really make sense. What really makes sense is, you have 100, 200 people who are actually ready to use what you're building. So we had this session once with PG sir, Paul Graham, and the first thing that he said was, you don't need a million people who just like your product. You need 100 people who absolutely love your product and their life won't be working without you. And I think that is what stuck with us when we initially started off. How can we get the first 100 users completely addicted to what we are building? So this is one of the biggest learnings that we have had back then. And another thing that we generally, and now as I run my own startup venture, I end up mentoring a lot of young startups as well. Another thing that we end up saying people is, um, most of us as young students mostly, we are scared of doing something different, and that is because we are mostly scared of losing our reputation. But the thing is ki, you know what reputation are we afraid of losing when we don't have any at this stage? This is the period where you can actually take that kind of risk. You have a fallback, you have your parents supporting you, you still have so many years of your career. So if things don't work out, you can always go back to a job, you can take that experience. Irrespective of whether a startup works out or not, you come out with a lot of experience. You're not just building a product, you're selling it, you're talking to so many people, you're networking. So it gives you a lot of experiences even if things don't work out. So I think these are few things that even I end up, when I mentor students, when we were at YC, these are some things that we came across. It always works out in the end, some way or the other.
So, sir, do you have any role model in your life?
Okay. So my biggest role model so far has been, I don't know how many of you have played the game Halo. So Master Chief, Master Chief Officer 117. The reason why I like that character is because the way he is always dedicated towards the kind of work he does. He's that kind of, he's more passionate towards protecting humanity, he's more passionate towards protecting people. In the similar way, when we compare ourselves to a startup world, we are more passionate towards how we can make it easier for, say, companies or enterprises to build stuff. And the biggest learning that we take, say, from character 117 from Halo, or how we relate it to our startup lives, is that when you want to really build something, when you want to really do something different, when you want to create a difference, you have to be passionate towards it, because life is not easy. The path is not easy. It's not a bed of roses at any point of time. And at any point of time, if you are not that passionate enough or you are not persistent enough, you end to lose your path. You end to lose your way. So I think that is why I have always been a big fan of that character, and that is what drives us forward. How can we be more passionate? How can we be more dedicated towards what we do?
Okay. So you are ex-MIT, and
Yes.
so do you have any special memory regarding MIT?
See, MIT has been a very big support, honestly, because I'm not allowed to say this on camera, so I won't disclose the kind of attendance that I had. But right from when college got to know that I'm building a startup, I think they have backed me a lot, saying, you just go out there, focus on what you're building, we'll take care of your academics and all of those stuff. And even I had very supportive professors as well. They were like, assignment late ho raha hai, theek hai, no worries, just submit it by the weekend and I'll get it processed. I'll just give you the marks. So I think this is the kind of support we used to get from MIT. So I wasn't a very frequent student in college. I tend to visit college now more than I was in college back then. But it has been 2 years now since I graduated. I graduated in 2023, and still I come back and the teachers are like, you were one of the guys whom we talk about to the students as an example. I'm like, ma'am, I was one of the backbenchers. I'm like, backbenchers can be good. So I still get that kind of respect. I still get kind of that love I used to get when I was in college from the professor. I still get that now, and I think this is one of the biggest or the best memory that I have out of uni.
तो सर अभी आपका स्टार्टअप जो है वो पैंडेमिक के टाइम पे आया था.
Yes.
सो लाइक ऑब्वियसली सबको इश्यूज फेस करने ही पड़े. सो वुड यू लाइक टू टेल अस कि आपने क्या क्या फेस किया एट दैट टाइम?
Okay, so I'll just start with how this entire startup thing originated. The thing is, as I talked about, at the age of 5, 6, like everyone, I always wanted to be someone who does not take the conventional path. So at that time, I was always interested in physics. That time, we used to have this thing called EVS.
Yeah.
environmental
Environmental
studies.
studies.
So उसमें ज़्यादा interest था, and then when we went to 8th 9th physics में ज़्यादा interest आने लगा था, and you know back in 10th I think that is when I decided कि I don't want to do engineering. ठीक है, and I think you kind of know how that conversation ends up going with your parents if you are good at studies in 9th and 10th and आप बोलते हो कि मम्मी मुझे साइंस नहीं लेना है, and I think that point of time my mom was like that same standard line जो I have heard every parent say is अभी कर लो बाद में जाके ऐश ही ऐश है. So I think that is what happened and I was like ठीक है physics ही है, you know physics also comes in science ही, तो कर लेते, let's try out JEE, let's try out IIT का इसमें. So I think I had a very good period those एक दो साल जो थे, I had a very good period over there where I was getting good marks, things were working out, things were absolutely smooth, सब कुछ sorted चल रहा था and everything. So अचानक से right before JEE mains I'm sitting in my physics lecture, I was with basketball tutorials, ठीक है. I think a lot of people who have been in the science field know basketball tutorials, ठीक है. So I'm sitting in the lecture, I'm looking at my physics sir, I'm like, you know, this is something I maybe like doing, but this is not something that I would like to do for the rest of my life. And वो एक जो realization होता है कि what you like doing is not essentially what is going to make you happy, is probably one of the biggest turnarounds of any person's life. And I think that is when I went back home and I was like, मम्मी मेरे को नहीं करना है, I don't want to sit for JEE mains. And back then me and my dad used to play this cute little game, okay, and I'll tell you the rules of the game that used to be there. So me and my dad are locked in a room and my dad gets a belt and his task is to make sure that belt makes contact to me. If he hits, he gets 100 points and if he misses, he loses 10 points. And he was a very good player of that game. Because by the time I came out of the room, मुझे तो scientist बनना है, JEE clear करके IIT जाने का है. That is how it ended up. ठीक है. So somehow I cleared JEE mains. I did clear out JEE mains. I cleared out JEE advanced. But I was surprisingly not getting into a good branch. Target हमेशा था कि CSFE NTC में जाना है. But I was not able to get into some of those branches. I was getting mechanical and metallurgy and all of those. No offense to mechanical kids, but it was something that I was not prepared for. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. So I think that is when my mom stood up and she was like, you know, इसको मैकेनिकल या फिर केमिकल में भेजेंगे, ये खुद वहाँ पे फेल होके आएगा, इससे अच्छा है let him try doing his own stuff. And I think that is how the entire origin story started. I think everyone has their own origin story, what drives us to do what we want to do.
Yes.
So I think that is where it started, right from all those belt games to all of those आगे जाके हो जाएगा sorted, अभी पढ़ लो बाद में ऐसे ऐसे. All of it ended up being leading to this path where, you know, I ended up building my own stuff. And my mom was like, at least चलो घर के पास रहेगा, he will be, you know, focusing on what he is doing, I will be able to help him out. So at that point I'm very glad that my parents were supportive. So I ended up coming to MIT उसके बाद, and we were in first year of engineering. The pandemic did not hit, तो pandemic को तभी भी time था, but we had already decided, you know, I want to do something. तो पहले तब क्या होता था when we were in first year, वो first year का energy रहता है that way you want to enjoy college at the peak, and so वो भी था I wanted to build something of my own. Things weren't working out, but suddenly pandemic struck and I think that did affect a lot of people, but I took it in a very positive manner because colleges बंद थे, कोई attendance का देख रहा है नहीं, online lecture चल रहा है, चलने दो, हम लोग अपना काम करेंगे. So I think that is where we started and ended up building one of our first projects. So it was a hackathon project that we were working on. It was a distant hackathon project we were working on, and we were absolutely ragged by the judges. मतलब इतना गंदा feedback मिला था उसको कि we were like, इसके बाद hackathon में participate करना ही नहीं है. We were like, हो गया आज का, we are not building anything anymore after this. But surprisingly, that became famous across college. It was a platform where we helped students build portfolios without coding. Every technical student needs to have their own portfolio, place where they can talk about their say projects and everything. So we helped them build those without any coding, and it became pretty famous across the college itself, across colleges in Pune, across India. And post that, it got acquired for quite a large amount of money by another external company. So I think that is when we were like, यार क्या बनाया था, क्या हो गया इसको. So pandemic did help us वहाँ पे. You know, we wouldn't have probably participated in that hackathon if we were still in that first year energy कि यार कॉलेज में ही एंजॉय करना है, सब ऐसा फेस्ट आ रहा है, सब पहली बार है, तो वी वुड वो वी वर लाइक ठीक है पैंडेमिक घर पे बैठे कुछ करने को है नहीं. Online lectures are practically very boring because it's just a one-way communication that ends up happening. So एक side पे lectures चल रहे, एक side पे we are busy with our own work, doing stuff. So I think pandemic, even though it wasn't something that was something you could look into a bright light, but it helped us to be what we are today. So I think that is where we are like, okay, this thing worked out for us. Not that I want to go back into that phase again, because नहीं वो घर के अंदर बैठे बैठे बहुत बोर होता है. But yes, it helped us to build.
So hackathon has helped you a
Hackathons that
lot.
help. Always participate in hackathon. It helps a lot. Even if you get ragged by your judges, you get to learn a lot. So always participate in hackathons.
That's great. So after accomplishing everything and आपने parents की बात भी नहीं सुनी थी तो उसके बाद उनका reaction क्या था इतना accomplished होने के बाद?
See अभी भी मम्मी से डांट तो पड़ती रहती है. तो I still get scolded by my mom for a lot of things. क्या टाइम से सोता नहीं है, टाइम से उठता नहीं है, कब सुधरेगा ये लड़का? So I still get that even after this, and I think I still have a long way to go. ठीक है, it's not that ये सब कुछ achieve हो गया या फिर ये. It's still the beginnings, it's still the very early beginnings, and we still have a very long way to go on how we look at stuff, how we work things through. So I think mom has been one of my biggest supporters throughout this entire thing. उनका एक ही यार अगर this thing does not work out कुछ ना कुछ कर लेगा, इसमें दिमाग है. ठीक है, दिमाग नहीं है तो उसको धक्का मार के मैं काम करवा लूँगी, कुछ ना कुछ कर लेगा. So I think that is where my mom has that kind of confidence कि कर लेगा कुछ तो. And when your parents have that kind of confidence where you're not going through that continuous stress, you know, you need to look for a job, you need to settle down, you need to find some way out. I think it helps a lot with your mental capacity where you're not continuously thinking about, you know, how do I contribute at home or how do I contribute, you know, say घर से एक pressure आ रहा है कि यार job कर ले, but मुझे कुछ और करना है. So I was never in that kind of situation. ठीक है. And another thing that I had observed was I was never someone who lived in a hostel. So, you know, when I'm living with my family, when I'm living with my parents, I don't have to go through that thing कि यार आज कपड़े कौन धोएगा या फिर आज खाना कौन पकाएगा. And a lot of things get managed by my mom, घर पे जो house help है वो सब. So it gives me a lot of time to focus on what I actually want to do. So I think that is what is important, where you can focus, you can be in your kind of zone, which helps you build. You can't be doing multiple things at the same point of time. I think this is what I suggest a lot of startup founders as well. At any point of time, our mental capacity allows us to focus on one single thing. You can't focus on multiple things at the same point of time, no matter how well we say यार मुझे तो multitasking आता है. यहाँ पे I have seen founders working in front of me. एक साइड पे वो अपने बंदी के साथ बात कर रहा है, एक साइड पे he's doing his own stuff. I'm like, focus on one thing. So you can't. You no matter how much you say कि multitasking करना है, it does not work out. Focus on one thing at a time. She'll be happy if you focus on her. Your work will be happy if you focus on it at any point of time. So focus on one thing. I hope no teacher is going to watch this.
Okay. So sir, at the start, at the initial stage of startup, अभी बहुत से young leaders भी है, young business leaders भी है. तो मार्केटिंग स्ट्रेटेजी फिलहाल सबका सेम होता है या कुछ मतलब एक ऐसी मार्केटिंग स्ट्रेटेजी जो डिफरेंशिएट कर सके अपना स्टार्टअप.
See, the thing about startups is when you're going out into the market, no one knows you. You have to be prepared. ठीक है, I have seen founders making this mistake कि यार आज लॉन्च करेंगे कल हमारे 100 यूजर्स आ जाएंगे, 200 यूजर्स आ जाएंगे. That's not the reality. You need to get down to the ground, because whatever plans you make in office, whatever plans you make sitting in that AC room, once you hit the road, once you hit the market, every plan changes. We have faced that in real world. मतलब हम लोग ऐसा प्लान करेंगे कि कस्टमर को ऐसे रीच आउट करना है, सारे कस्टमर के गेट्स हम लोग रिजेक्ट होकर वापस आए थे. So what you plan does not essentially work out unless you go to the market. ठीक है. And I think the first 100 customers is always going to be your biggest challenge as a founder, as a startup founder. How you get the first 100 customers has to be the biggest challenge. And there's no proper rule book towards how you market stuff. You know, आज के दिन में marketing courses and all of these are there that teach you how to market.
Yes.
But essentially this is only applicable you are working with a big company who's already well known. तब वो marketing strategies वगैरह काम आते हैं. When you are very early जहाँ पे तुम्हें कोई जानता नहीं है, these standard marketing techniques like, you know, you run advertisements and all of this will work, but it's not going to get you the kind of eyeballs or the kind of scalability that you're looking at. So I think when we first started, the first way in which we got our first 100 customers were, I have an elder sister, she's 27 now. So back then, she's 27 now. So back then she was 25 2 years ago. एक दो साल पहले था, तो 25, 26. And I was like, यार दीदी मुझे ना तेरे 2-3 फोटोज चाहिए. I told her, I actually told her I'm creating a Bumble account by your name. At that time, she was seeing someone. She was already engaged. So that guy was like, bro, are you for real? I'm like, nothing against you guys. I just want to experiment one thing. So I think I created an account on Bumble and it was 2 or 3 days and I'm like, okay, 2000 people have already swiped right. And यहाँ पे मेरे अकाउंट में बस 10 लोग ने स्वाइप राइट किया. I'm like, यार ठीक है, I'll use this. And she's very pretty. She's very, very pretty. My sister is very pretty. As much as I hate her, she's very pretty. Okay. She is Hitler. Hitler है वो. So I was like, I accepted some of the requests. I swiped right on some of them. And I was pretending to be my sister and I'm talking to them. At one point, I was completely into that role that, I have to act like my sister. I somehow convinced them that, I'm running a startup and I am in desperate need of say revenue to show to my investors. I told them the truth. In spite of catfishing them, I still told them the truth. I need the aim. And they were like, how can I help you? How can I, help you grow in this startup thing? So I was like, can you or some of your friends sign up and, go for a $15 subscription so that it can help me create a proper pitch deck. And by the end of 48 hours, I had over 130, 140 people who were already paying customers. And I think there were 170 people who had signed up already. So this was one of the craziest marketing stories that I had ever implemented. My sister absolutely scolded me a lot after that. यार क्या कर रहा है? What if some of them ends up being my colleague in the near future? I'm like, वो तू संभाल ले, मेरा काम हो गया है यहाँ पे. Another thing that we ended up doing was one of the biggest competitors right now is Google.
Yeah.
Okay, Google also works in the snowboard space a lot. So what we ended up doing was we wore our office t-shirts and everything, and Google का एक event हो रहा था at one hotel. We ended up standing right outside the hotel gate. हम लोग सबको pamphlet distribute कर रहे थे. वो तक Google के ऊपर cross लिखा हुआ come to us करके. I think that is another thing that worked out well for us. So we have done absolute crazy things to make things work. We have done things like distributing pamphlets outside our competitors' offices, and we have stayed at some hotels जहाँ पे these events keep on going on. And हम लोग ने रात को जैसे वो 3 Idiots में होता है ना ऐसा मैगजीन डाल के आते हैं, हम लोग हमारे पैम्पलेट्स डाल के आते हैं सबके दरवाजे के नीचे. So that's the thing. Whenever you are building a startup, you want to build something. कोई जानता नहीं है, so you have to find out how you reach these people. No, if you guys are marketing students, you will know कि no one is ready to listen to you until unless you force them to listen. So how do you get them to that? How do you create that post कि यार सुनो मैं जो बोल रहा हूँ? You have to pay those 5 minutes. So that is how you create your first sense of marketing. That is how you create the first sense of how you create that situation जहाँ पे people listen to you. So don't always follow that standard path of how you market stuff. Try to find out something different, something that is going to get that eyeballs, right? Something that is going to get you the users that you want. I think that's more or less it.
Yeah, because अभी फिलहाल तो सब सोशल मीडिया पे प्रमोट करना ये एंड पैम्पलेट्स तो इतना आई गेस ओवरडेटेड हो गया है कि अभी न्यूज़पेपर में एड्स देना वगैरह तो अभी करते ही नहीं है. मतलब बस ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जो ज्वेलरीज वाले रहेंगे या बिल्डर्स रहेंगे, they are more focused on this.
I think that's what worked more for us. People did not expect a software company to go as far as distributing pamphlets. They're like, यार क्या है? So they're like, software company का है. And people do end up signing up because they're like, which crazy guys are signing pamphlets as software companies? So when you're doing something crazy, people are always going to notice you. If you know, Red Bull का सुना होगा तुम लोगों ने. Red Bull does everything apart from वो एनर्जी ड्रिंक के अलावा उनका चैनल खोले उनके चैनल में एनर्जी ड्रिंक का एडवर्टाइजमेंट छोड़ के सब कुछ है. That is what's helping them get that eyeballs. Because essentially what they're trying to sell is they're trying to sell emotion. They're not trying to sell the product to you. They're trying to sell that, we do energetic stuff. Yes. We do stuff that is different. And that is what our product stands for. So you have to always find out ways in which you can connect with the human emotions and not the product.
That's it. So you have accomplished so many already. What advice would you give to students or early stage entrepreneurs who want to build something meaningful?
Few things is, the first thing is always build something that people want. Okay. This journey is not going to be a bed of roses. बहुत सारे struggles आते हैं. There are a lot of things that go through. And what you can essentially do is you need to keep that hopes up. आज के दिन में the fact that we are so addicted to reels and Instagram, we get to see कि यार सबके lives इतने sorted है, सबका इतना ये है. it does not essentially mean that people who are rich and famous are essentially smart. I am referring to Instagram Reels at this point. People who are rich and famous are not always smart. So don't end up trying to follow what people are doing. Take feedback from users, but don't let anyone put you down. Because the moment you lose confidence in yourself, that is when we end up saying, yeah, if you are not confident about what you are building, how do you expect others to be confident कि तुम वो कर पाओगे? So this is another thing. And the third thing is, I pointed out earlier on, कि don't be afraid of losing anything at this point. You don't have anything to lose, you know. A lot of students I speak to are like, you know, यार अगर मैं ये करूँगा तो मेरी reputation खराब हो जाएगी, मेरे college में reputation खराब हो जाएगी. But the thing is, the reputation that you have right now, you can bet on that कि वो बढ़ सकता है. But you don't have that kind of reputation कि खराब हो गई तो it's going to be completely destroyed. As long as you don't do anything illegal. That is if some
exception.
Don't do anything illegal, but you can take that risk. You have that chance to take that risk. So I think it's always going to be about, you know, you take that risk, how you go ahead. And there was this Pitbull song that was like, you know, if you aim for the stars and you miss, you will always land on the moon. So I think that is what we always try to talk to people, like, you know, give that shot, go for that light. If things work out, it's very well. If it doesn't work out, you at least have a load of experience to talk to other people with. And the thing is, these advices that we give, this is not something that we have followed in our lives. हम लोग ने कभी follow नहीं किए. हम लोग, we were the backbencher kids who were like, you know, we figured life out along the way. And हम लोग ने जो सीखा है, we try to talk those things out. So even we haven't followed this. These are things that we have faced and we talk about this. So I think that is more or less what I'll tell founders, early founders, that, you know, keep trying. Things work out in the end. Things obviously work out in the end. But the road is going to be tough and you need to have proper supporters. The thing is, you don't need 100 people supporting you in your journey. You just need 2-3 people who will be along your side. Just like college mein, when I did not used to get time to do assignments and everything, I used to have 2 friends who used to write down my assignments for me from time to time. उनको उसे KitKat देना होता था मुझे. But yes, I do appreciate the kind of backing I used to get when I was in college, because again, I would have spent time writing those assignments, I wouldn't have been able to focus on this.
Sure.
अभी भी things कहीं पे कुछ ऐसा काम आ जाता है. Sometimes घर के भी कुछ काम आते हैं which mom needs my help with. If I'm not available, there is one of my neighbors who helps me out. You know, yeah, तू काम पे focus कर, I'll go and do this for you. So you need 2-3 people who are always having your back along this process. I have a lot of cats, so when my day goes bad, I grab a hold of one of my cat and बैठेंगे पे. I sit with them. Just sit patiently with them and see how things work out. So you need different roles in your life. Different people performing different roles. Someone becomes emotional support. Someone becomes, you know, कहीं पे problem आ रहा है, they help them out. So I think this is one thing that is important for everyone to have. You can't win this battle alone. You need people along your journey. So the journey is what matters. It's not the end point or the end.
Thank you so much, sir. This has been an incredible conversation.
Thank you for having
From
me.
exam prep websites to automation platform, you have shown us what passion, curiosity, and a little bit of code-free magic can do. Before we wrap up, how can our listeners check out WorqHat and connect with you?
So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you search for Sagnik Ghosh on LinkedIn or Instagram, I am probably the first search yeah, that comes up. You can search about me on Google as well. Subtle flex मारते हुए. So you can search about me on Google. So I'll definitely pop up out there. Or you can just visit our website worqhat.com and वहाँ पे सारे details मिल जाएंगे.
Perfect. To everyone listening, go check out WorqHat and start building your dream app while binge watching Netflix. It's the future, people. Thanks again, Sagnik Ghosh, sir, for joining us. Looking forward to seeing what's next on your journey and not feeling hopefully accomplished of our own journey. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep building, and remember, every empire starts with an idea. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.